T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
All right. Well, we'll keep it real simple, man. There's been a whole lot happening. A whole lot happening. You know, for people that follow us, they know, and for the maybe half a dozen people out there that don't yet follow us, basically what we try to do is, you know, we do at least one long form show a week, right? That's the goal, is one long form. That long form could be an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Basically, we do whatever the heck we feel like doing. And there are times we may film some reaction videos, different things to, you know, a Monday Night Football game or whatever, you know, different things that might go on. And, you know, we weren't initially planning to do anything tonight. It's Friday night. Weren't going to do anything on a Friday night. And then Thursday Night Football happened last night between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. And we saw one of the weirder, maybe more disturbing injuries that we've ever seen in a football game. For anyone who didn't see it, and of course at this point you're hearing it everywhere, Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, I think I'm saying that name, Tua
sure.
Tagovailoa. I hear other people say it, and I'm always like, oh yeah, and then but I so rarely say it. Everyone just ends up saying Tua. So the man known as Tua, you know, goes down with an injury, obviously a head injury. I'm going to let you jump in on it. But you know, you and I and other friends and, you know, people that have been on the show and some that haven't have been talking a lot about this since last night, because it's been, I think, bizarre in terms of how we even got to this point and what this situation really is looking like and reflecting like for the NFL. But yeah, man, just we wanted to do this. You kind of, I don't even want to call it a reaction video, because even though that is what it is, it's really just like us talking about what in the world is going on. So, you know, break it down a little bit if you could. Why don't you jump in and, you know, see what you can bring to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was ugly. Scary. I mean, that was, you know, I remember watching live when Ryan Shazier injured himself. And
Pittsburgh Steelers, for anyone who doesn't know,
I said was he's paralyzed. And just because it was the way he hit, the way he flopped over, I was like, oh my gosh, that dude's paralyzed. And with Tua, it wasn't like that, but it was just so creepy and scary the way this dude just laid there, his fingers like just curled in, you know. Yeah. So I told you I was picking up my oldest from a football game he was watching, and so I was listening to the radio driving. And it was the CBS Sports radio broadcast. And they were like, and down goes Tua, sacked. And the play-by-play guy or the color commentator says, oh, man, I think he dislocated his finger. And it's like, oh, man. And, you know, they went to commercial, came back, and then, you know, it was so somber. It was like, no, that was like the reaction to being knocked out cold. And I looked at I came home and of course immediately rewound it and unbelievable. And shame on anyone that let that kid play. I'm sorry. We're going to get into it. I know, but I just want to get my shames in. Shame on you. I was,
NFL, Miami Dolphins, you guys get the horns. That's for sure, man. This is an embarrassment.
%. I told you, today, I was going to say on this on our show on Tuesday that I would not be shocked if Tua got knocked out with another concussion because of the hit he took the previous Sunday. And I didn't want to do that because I just didn't want to put it out there into the atmosphere. And, I just didn't want to be that guy.
Agreed.
But no one was shocked at that. Like, that hit was hard.
No. But
that hit wasn't, my fingers are, like, dislocating, amongst themselves hard. Like, it clearly had to be an effect.
It's a hit we see a million times in a game. We see these hits a million times in a game. It seemed like nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, I will say this, just to be clear, this is not an issue of a malicious hit by the defense.
No, no.
This was not a malicious defensive hit, throwing him to the ground like with some sort of like viciousness. This was not that.
No.
This was a minor situation. And
it's a sack Joe Burrow gets every sixth place.
Yeah, 3-4 times a game he deals with this. So I think it's important to take people back a little bit, right? So people know, anyone who's been following the game has been hearing what's going on with this situation from last week, right? So just a brief recap. Last Sunday's game, Tua goes down, head bounces back off of the turf.
Which was a dirty play.
Again, concussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was a
agreed.
Dirty play.
Yeah. And an obvious concussion type of situation. Guy gets up. He's kind of like stumbling, holding his head. We talked about this on our most recent episode, actually, talking about some of the games from Sunday. Holding his head and clearly, kind of shaken up. They take him off, and he misses a little bit of time from the game, and then they put him right back in, and they claim that it was a back injury.
Yeah.
And that he was hurting his back and had nothing to do with his head. They let him come in. Now, hey, plays fine the rest of the game, right?
Sure.
He does play. But everyone knew this is kind of suspicious. It's been the talk all over the place about, like, wait a minute, what's going on here that this guy bounces his head off the ground, is holding his head and stumbling, and then it turns out, it was just something in my lower back that was hurting.
Yeah,
it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense, right?
No.
And then miraculously, he's able to play in this game last night. And then
on a
takes
short
this
week
sack again. Yes, exactly. Yes, great point. Great point. A short week, takes the sack, another head impact to the ground. And so this is kind of I was saying all that just to clear up when you were talking about, you were going to mention this the other day on the show from last week's, obviously, or it seemed appeared to be a head injury, concussion, that he's going to be that much more susceptible going into this game. And clearly, I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened.
No. Now, if you listen to the comments in Bleacher Report, Bleacher Report, if you listen to the comments, someone actually had a pinched nerve and they fell down like that, according to the Bleacher Report comments.
Held their head and stumbled, and oh god!
Like
I told you on last week's show, like, I have a herniated disc in my back. Right. The times when I am when my back goes out, when I am just crippled, at no time am I holding my head and thrashing around. Like, that's just, that's not a thing that happens. That's when your brain is foggy and you're shaking the cobwebs off. And that's not back pain that has you thrashing your head and neck around. It's counterintuitive. That would hurt your back more.
The apologists for the organization sicken me. It's
an embarrassment.
You say, well, they cleared him. Well, okay. They cleared him. Sure. Yeah. But shame on whoever did clear him.
Cleared O.J. Simpson, too. I mean, there's lots of people that have been cleared for different things, right? It doesn't mean anything that you technically cleared him.
So a team doctor and a outside neurologist handpicked by the teams cleared him.
That's right.
And the NFL, the NFL director on player safety, he cleared all percussion or concussion protocols. Yeah, because you couldn't you couldn't not play him that game. Like,
True.
Nobody in their right mind would have looked at Tua last Sunday and said he didn't suffer a concussion. You would have to just be lying to yourself, or you just are completely stupid. Agreed. Or gullible or whatever. The thing of it is like when you get people coming out, and you're going to touch on it, I'm sure, but I saw Rich Eisen come out and blast it. You've seen Loudmouth, First Take guy,
Colin Cowherd. I could Skip Bayless. Stephen A. Smith. I could run through a million of them. Okay,
all coming out and saying it. But gosh, I don't want to give this dude any credit. Hate him with a passion. But when an NFL head coach for a different team comes out and says he's never in his 40 years of coaching has ever seen anything like that before. And he mentioned the previous Sunday and then what happened on Thursday.
Yep.
That says a lot. John Harbaugh.
And I've got that here. I can go into some detail.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's an NFL head coach. It's John Harbaugh of the Ravens. And so, media session today, they're asking, of course, it's the topic on everyone's mind about, what happened with this injury. So I'm just going to read this off again. As you mentioned, Harbaugh's in his 14th season as an NFL coach, all with the Ravens as a head coach. Previously was with the Eagles. So again, this is also a Ravens team that got upset by the Miami Dolphins 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah. In a crazy game. So it's not like you can imagine that there's some great love fest between these two teams or anything like that. And he says, I couldn't believe what I saw last night. I couldn't believe what I saw last Sunday. It was just something that was astonishing to see. And he kind of, goes on, and there's a little bit more to talk about with this that, for some context as well. But to wrap up Harbaugh's comments, he says, I've been coaching for 40 years. I've never seen anything like it before. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And, when you look at that, that's amazing. First of all, it's amazing because we do not often hear NFL head coaches openly disparage the treatment that players will receive from the NFL.
I mean, that's bold. I mean, I don't know that anyone has ever come out and said anything like that about another team. And he's 100% right. I mean, 100% correct and 100% correct in saying it. But, he could have easily taken the political, non-comment, well, we just monitor
I wasn't
our
there.
guys.
I didn't see it.
Sure.
Right.
If that's our guys, we're going to do this or that. But, I wasn't there. I don't know his medicals. I don't know any of that. No, he didn't. He was straight up. I've never seen anything like this.
Yep.
This is unbelievable. And, you've got, Chris Nowitzki, who, again, he's a neurological doctor, former WWE wrestler, Chris Nowitzki. I don't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, actually suffered something. Yeah, that's actually what pushed him into becoming a doctor of neurology, because he had suffered a couple of concussions while in the ring, and he played football. But yeah, he was a wrestler for several years and sustained some concussions and, stepped away. And that's what kind of started piquing his interest in it. Now, I will say his love of the NFL and the way they handle player concussions is, there's no love lost there between him and the NFL for sure. But, he mentioned something that Mike McDaniel said that, it was, thank goodness it was only a concussion. And he was like, only a concussion. A concussion is a traumatic brain injury. There's
exactly right.
There's no, thank
Stop
goodness.
Minimizing it. Stop minimizing it.
Yeah. And McDaniel just dug himself in a hole even deeper. Like, I don't know if you saw this. He says Tua flew home on the plane with him, which again, doesn't sound like something that you should do when you have a concussion, fly at high altitude. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
With a pressurized cabin and everything else.
So I don't know. And he's like, Tua sat with me and we watched McGruber and he was laughing the whole entire time. Yeah, you know what?
So he's fine.
So he's fine. Yeah, he watched McGruber. Just incredibly hilarious. Maybe you should have checked him for a higher concussion if he's laughing the entire time at McGruber. But, I looked it up, and you know what it says about like watching television or watching screens after a concussion?
I think that's one of the worst things to do, isn't it?
Minimally 48 hours.
Wow.
You're not supposed to be watching anything, doing it. Where are the doctors? Where's the team? The team doctor doesn't fly with them? Like, hey, yeah, it's not a good idea to.
It makes no sense.
Here's the things for your eyes. Let's just put these over your eyes. Go to sleep, and let's get you checked out once we land. No, instead they're laughing it up at McGruber on an airplane.
Yeah. Makes no sense. And here's the thing too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's infuriating. It really is. I whether Tua makes it in this league as a top flight quarterback or not is not going to have any bearing in my life. I'm not going to care one way or the other if Tua flops, flames, whatever. But this is a guy who is fighting for his starting job career. It was tank for Tua.
He's trying to come into his own. There was a ton of pressure on him this year.
Yes, it was tank for Tua. They get Tua, and then they've spent the entire time Tua has been there trying to bring someone else in. It was Tom Brady. It was Deshaun Watson. So you've done nothing since he's been there but try and get rid of him. This year, you've actually put weapons around him, and he's starting to come into his own. He doesn't want to, like, what's he going to do? No, coach, I'm not going to play. Like, he's fighting for that next huge contract. He's fighting to make sure that he stays the starter. So, of course, he's going to want to stay in. Of course, he's going to say, I'm fine. Of course, he's going to go into the locker room and say, yeah, that was my sciatica was acting up. Of course, he's going to do that because he wants to be in there. The whole idea of this expert who's not affiliated with the team, this outside doctor, the whole idea of that was to protect the player from himself. You take the helmet, you take him back, and you don't let him back in the game. Anyone with two eyes, anyone with one eye would have been able to tell he shouldn't have been back in that game, but yet you do, and now he comes up with a terrible, terrible injury. The second game on a short rest, 5 days later, you have him back out there and you let him take an innocuous hit. And now this is what we're left with. And you're still defending it. We did nothing wrong. It was just, so you're telling me this dude suffered 2 concussions in 2 weeks in a span of 5 days. And it was just all coincidence. One had nothing to do with the other. Get out of here.
I've got something here for you. So some quotes here from Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. I'm going to be super clear. This isn't just about the Miami Dolphins, right? This is about the NFL as an organization, and their safety precautions. But it does start with the team that the player plays for.
Sure.
Coach Mike McDaniel, he has 100% conviction in our process with Tua. So let me just read you these quotes and let me get your take on whether or not this feels like it makes sense, that it was actually handled this way, etc. Coach McDaniel said that Tua was cleared by, quote, several layers of medical professionals of having any head injury whatsoever in the Buffalo game. He said, in terms of deciding Whether or not to play a guy on a Thursday night game, I'm concerned about his lower back and ankle and putting it in harm's way, McDaniel said. I have 100% conviction in our process. The only thing that would keep me from playing him would be going against medical advice. I had no worries whatsoever. I'm in steady communication with this guy. There were absolutely no signs. He had no head injury symptoms whatsoever. There was no medical indication from all resources that there was anything regarding the head. If there would have been anything lingering with his head, of course I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I prematurely put someone out there in harm's way. This is a relationship that I have with this human being. I take that seriously. McDaniel said that Tua was still feeling some of the headaches on Friday morning and that he is not thinking about timetables when it comes to the quarterback returning to action. So here's the thing. Couple things, because there's a lot to pull apart out of these quotes. But one of the biggest ones is, first of all, to say that he was cleared by several layers of medical professionals of having any head injury whatsoever would indicate that several layers of medical professionals felt the need to check him for a head injury when he went out of the game. Right? Now, again, we're not talking about this game. We're talking about last week's game. We're talking about the first non-concussion, non-injury.
Sure.
So several layers of medical professionals said, we need to check this guy's head because of this back injury that he just suffered. Right? Makes no sense. Then he turns around and he says that there were absolutely no signs. He had no head injury symptoms whatsoever. There was no medical indication from all resources that there was anything regarding the head. So, first of all, that is a very, very strong statement to make, particularly when the entire nation of people who were watching the game witnessed what they believed to be a head injury.
Yeah, that many people were wrong.
This show cannot represent several layers of medical professionals. You and I are not medical professionals.
Sure.
The beauty of it is you did not need to be a medical professional to see a guy's head bounce off of the ground, him stumbling around, shaking his head, holding his head. That is not indicative of an ankle injury. That is not indicative of a back injury.
And then just collapsing, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And here, okay, it's a back injury. Did he grab his back at all when he fell?
Never.
If I fall or I pull my back, what's the first thing you do? You grab your back. He didn't.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. Now, in his defense, not even his defense, like in their, what else are they going to say? Yeah, he had a concussion. We were trying to get away with it.
Right.
So, but man, like, just keep digging your hole. Like, just keep digging it.
Yep.
But here's the problem. What's anyone going to do? I mean, you saw the Mitchell Schwartz text. Mitchell Schwartz comes out and says the NFL Players Association will, and not these exact words, but will defend a sexual predator from getting suspended too many games. But a person that's a good guy, a good human being, they're going to continue their ongoing investigation of how it was handled. These are players that know better.
Yeah.
They know.
That's right.
But, the Players Association is worried that Deshaun Watson's going to get suspended for a whole year. Meanwhile, Tua's out there literally, his life expectancy's, now gone down 10 years because of this. It's disgusting, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did not realize how fired up I was about that until I just started thinking about it. And I texted you and I was like, man, I need to go on a rant because this is insane. This is crazy. Like, it's like you see something happening and someone is telling you like, no, that didn't happen. No, Well, I'm looking right at it. What do you mean? Like, no, that's
I'm not
what you think it is. That's not what you think it is. It's that mentality of like, you are too stupid The average NFL fan is too stupid to understand. Like, no, that was his back, man. That was his back. That wasn't anything else.
You're not a doctor. We have doctors. The doctors checked him.
We're good.
They said
we're good, man. We're good. Yeah. And the people defending the team and saying, it's just, I just don't know why you defend the team. Like, why are you why is anyone defending them? You can see exactly what happened. You can see exactly what took place, and you choose to defend them because that's your favorite team.
And you can like the team. Yeah, you can like the team.
To do
Nobody's
like
saying
team.
You can't be a fan of the team anymore.
Right.
But like, it doesn't matter. We can go through almost any team, and over the years, there have been missteps with the way teams have handled situations. Sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional. Sometimes it's just a team's never been in a situation like this before. And man, we thought this and we just screwed up. I don't know what you want us to tell you. It was just handled poorly, and we'll learn from it and get better from it. Here's the difference in my mind about this. And there's kind of two parts to this. Part number one is, as you mentioned already, the player's always going to want to come back in.
Always.
So therefore, automatically, they are not a relevant source of information about the injury. You cannot say, oh, he felt fine. He told me that. Again, of course he did. Like, this guy's trying to pay his bills and he's trying to keep a career going and everything else. Like, naturally, these guys are some of the most competitive athletes in the world. That's how they got to where they are. And the idea that, like, oh, well, he's trustworthy, right? Then, secondarily, you're in this scenario. And again, I have a little bit of a nuanced view on this. Maybe more, maybe less than other people have. I always look at it and say, the NFL is an inherently dangerous sport. Players sign up for risk.
Yeah, sure.
Injuries will absolutely happen. This is where I feel always a little bit weird about ex-players when they're retired, then wanting to sue the league and saying, oh, well, I've got all these injuries, right? It's kind of like, man, you knew what you were signed up for. The problem, though, is that there are things that have to be put in place to protect players, as you said, from themselves. The systems that are supposed to be there have failed in this situation. Bottom line, there is absolutely no other opinion.
100%.
And I don't
100%.
care if you want to blame the Miami Dolphins, if you want to blame the National Football League, if you want to blame head coach Mike McDaniels, or any combination of those. The systems that were designed to protect the player failed the player. And
100%.
It seems like he's going to be bouncing back from this, right? This is a guy who was literally seized up on the field. Looked like he was having like an absolute seizure, locked up. They have to take him out. So has to spend the night in the hospital. And again, for, as you mentioned, and you said the word perfectly, an innocuous hit, right? But when it happens 5 days after the last one, that was even worse, much worse than this in terms of the amount of whiplash and head bouncing off the ground and everything else, you're putting the player in danger. Now, I'll say this, going back to the Harbaugh situation. Not last season. I believe it was 2 years ago. The Ravens were in the playoffs playing against the Buffalo Bills. And if you remember, Lamar Jackson had to be evaluated for a concussion in that game. Ravens finished the game with backup quarterback Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley was not able to score the touchdown. They end up losing the game, right? This is postseason play. Harbaugh, asked about it after the game, said nothing to talk about. Like, it could have been a concussion. Our doctors said that it was a possibility. We held him out. There's no chance we would have ever put him back in. Done. So again, when Harbaugh's speaking about this, he's speaking from a place of, he has his own history with it that he can speak to and say, and he didn't say this, right? He did not bring that up. And he didn't say, hey man, my record on this is impeccable. He didn't do anything like that. But the reality is he's been in the exact same situation before and he handled it completely differently.
Yep.
And so whenever you see that, you have to look at it and go, okay, yeah, not everyone's the same. Mike McDaniels was the first-year head coach. also coaching for his job. And I hate to bring things like this up, but if you look in just the last 6 to 12 months, the issues that have come out about the Miami Dolphins, let's remember that they currently have an owner who is suspended from the team for violating league rules.
Yep.
They had tampering charges with Tom Brady, with Sean Payton. They've had issues as an organization. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have any hard feelings toward Miami. Their team doesn't matter to me, right? They're not a team I hate, not a team I love. I have no issue with them. But, man, the issues are starting to stack up. While I personally don't have an issue with them, the issues they are having are really starting to stack up. And when you look at this and you go, okay, wow, so we've got an owner who's suspended from team. We have tampering fines, penalties. I think the draft picks, all kinds of different things between coaches, players, and everything else. And now you have this going on with the medical professionals on the team. It just starts to be like, wow, man, there's still people out there defending the team.
Yeah.
I think you got to look at this with clear eyes and say something isn't right.
Yeah.
Something isn't right.
It's the and they take the literal mantra, they take the mantra of win at all costs very, very seriously, apparently, in Miami.
Yeah.
Whether it's cheating, whether it's putting a guy out there on the field that shouldn't be on the field, whether it's tampering, win at all costs. That's they
haven't been good for 30 years. They're finally relevant, and they're not willing to let it go, apparently.
No. And man. I don't know, dude. That's messed up, man. That's all I gotta say. It's that situation is terrible. I feel horrible for Tua, man. First off, you're like, just the way the Dolphins, to me, have treated him. Some of it, I guess, is his fault. Like, he didn't ask to be drafted where he was drafted. The head coaching.
He's always handled himself well.
Always handled himself well. Never causes issues. Looks like he just wants to go out and play hard, gets hurt.
This is a guy that's been benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is a guy that was benched multiple times for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's it. That's what I'm saying.
And stood by and just, hey, I'll wait my turn.
You tanked for him and then have done nothing but try to get the dude out of town ever since he got in there. And this year he's starting to put it together. And you knew we can't win with Teddy Bridgewater. So let's try to get him out there. All right, you feel good, right? Yeah, you're good. And what a shame! A shame, man.
And the other thing too, awfully coincidental. We won't get a chance. We can't jump in the DeLorean and go back in time and see how things could have changed had Biff not bought that comic book, and therefore the schedule ended up being different here. But man, when the games that they're playing, the two games in question, are against division rival Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, last year's Super Bowl runner-up, and obviously a very difficult contending team in the AFC, which is also where the Dolphins play in the AFC, and a huge opportunity for them, if they could win that game last night against the Bengals, to be able to go up significantly on them in the AFC standings, which is going to play a huge role in their postseason hopes at the end of the season. Man, if it was just against someone else, I just don't know if it would have been handled the same way. If they've been playing the Houston Texans, I'm just not sure that this would have played out the exact same way that it did.
The Atlanta Falcons, Seattle Seahawks. Probably
take your pick of bad teams.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're playing Joe Flacco and the Jets, chances are, and they have, a 14, 17-point lead, something tells me Tua's not trotting back out on that field.
Not going to trot back
I just don't see that happening.
Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly 100% correct.
These were two vital games for this team to win. And so it was too important to them. And again, player two. Hey, look, guess what? I'm a young player. I've had my struggles. I'm playing well right now. I don't want to lose that. I've been benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick multiple times in the past. Fitzpatrick's not even in the league anymore.
Right.
And you think that if this team needs me that I'm not going to do everything I can do. If I can put one foot in front of the other, I'm going to be out on that field.
Right.
That's my job as the leader of the team.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, that is a toxic mindset. I hate to use the word toxic because it's very much kind of in the vernacular nowadays in so many different ways. But that line of thinking is what makes him untrustworthy. And it's what makes the doctors who feel the exact same type of pressure because they are paid by the team and by the league. And these are important games with high ratings. And I promise you, if you were to look, ratings drop when star players leave games early because of injuries.
Oh, I'm sure, 100%. I'm sure
just
it
does.
I mean, you just we ain't gonna win. All right, let me turn the game off. Especially on on a work night. Thursday night game.
That's right.
That's
right.
Tua's not playing. Yeah, I'm just gonna hit the bed early.
Yeah.
I got work.
I got to get up
morning.
early. Oh well.
Yeah. I'll catch the
See what else is on. Oh, it's a Sunday game. Oh, it's a nice day, honey. I guess I'll go out and rake leaves or whatever people do on Sundays if they're not watching football. And it's like that's if you tune in, you don't have a chance to win. You're going to do something else.
That's
we just know that these things are the case.
Yes.
And so we just continue to have these things play out like this, and all of us, it's this willful ignorance that the NFL is betting. Literally betting that the audience will show. They will show a willful ignorance. They will turn a blind eye and let it be okay. And sure, will there be a little bit of hubbub and a little bit of uproar? Absolutely. And then we're just going to move right past it because guess what? Magically, so when we're recording this, it's Friday night. What do you want to bet? That there's going to be one or two amazing, tight, crazy games on Sunday, and that magically takes all the focus off of this story, and something else is now the thing that we talk about, the double overtime tie that happens, right? This is what's going to happen. We've seen it happen. And every time we're kind of like, oh, well, this situation's different. This situation's a little different. They're not different. They're not different. Because it's the same people running the organization, running the league. It's the same people every time.
I'm convinced someone could die on the field and it would not matter. I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop this train of the NFL.
It's too valuable.
It's too valuable. Nothing is going to stop it. Well, that's football. That's what they'll say.
Yep. Yeah. Think about it like this, right? You hear the story sometimes, and God knows it's a horrible story, right? But like I've heard the story, just weird one-off stories in the news, right? Where it's like I just saw one recently where it's like some food company where it was like the guy was found in one of the pieces of equipment at the food processing plant. He had fallen in, and blah blah blah. You think they shut down? No, we're a business. Wipe it out. Keep going, man.
That's it.
It's like this is a business, and this is the exact same thing. And this is one of the things. I mean, we were texting about this morning. The NFL produces a product. Games are a commodity. The players are interchangeable. So if a bad one, again, I don't care what you're producing, right? If you have an assembly line and something comes through and it's bad, what do? You pluck it out and you just keep that line moving.
Yep.
You're not going to stop the line because we got production numbers to hit. Pull that one out and just keep going. Everything continues the same way. And that's exactly what this is. Oh, we had one. We have a faulty one. No problem. Pull that faulty one. Pull that faulty Tua out. Stick him over here. And if someone can fix him up and he's good enough to get back in line, great. Otherwise, just keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. And look, I have a lot of conflicted feelings about it. In general, I do not support the Players Association because I feel like they always poorly represent themselves and the players. I do not feel like they give good advice to players. And therefore, they create a bad partnership. I do not feel like the Players Association is a good partner to the league. But in this one instance, I do not support the league and the organization because of what I can see with my own eyes. It's not about taking anyone's word for it.
No,
right? It's just
that's
not.
exactly right.
This is not a situation where, it's like a he said, she said type of situation, or a Robert Kraft at the Orchids of Asia Day Spa. But we don't really ever actually see anything. There's no video, thank God. But ultimately, we just wait for it to blow over. This, sure. I know. I saw it with my own eyes, so I know the situation. And the idea that that now I'm just being asked to pretend that it didn't happen, or believe people who say that there was no evidence of it, it just doesn't make sense.
No,
it
that's
doesn't
the thing.
make sense.
That's the thing that aggravates me the most is just that you think I'm that stupid.
Yeah.
That I can't see. Again, it's right in front of my eyes. I'm watching it. And as I'm watching it, you're telling me this hasn't happened. Like, this isn't a David Blaine street magic trick.
Right.
Like,
it's not sleight of hand.
No, this is, we can see what happened. Again, nobody has a back injury. Shaking their head. The head and the spine, they're all kind of connected. So the last thing I want to do when my back is hurting is shake my head really violently because my back hurts. It's just, stop, man. Just stop. Stop pretending we're this stupid. But again, what else are you going to do? You're just, like, you can't come out and be like, yeah, we lied. Yeah, he really did, get his bell rung. But we didn't think it was enough for him to stay out. We didn't think it was a concussion. We think he just got dazed a little bit, but he wasn't concussed, And so that's the only thing else you could have said. But then they couldn't have said that, because then what happened yesterday when
that's right,
he goes out and a hit like that, crumbles him and again, takes years off his life. It's just, So
I'll tell you something else too. I think one thing that's important to understand: we don't know what we don't know about brain injuries and brain issues. Right? There's still more information coming through all the time. But I'll tell you something that I read. Gosh, I'm trying to remember if it was last night or today. Time flies. But they were saying that we know about as much about the brain today as we knew about the heart in the 1960s.
Wow.
So for somebody to be able to say that, what you're talking about is 60 years of advancement in heart knowledge lost to equal what we know about the brain today. Right. So it's a very fast changing field. Again, it was only a few years ago. There was not even a thing. There was no such thing as CTE.
No.
Right. And it went from no one's ever heard of this to players are committing suicide and now they're being diagnosed with this to the league has to pay out whatever it was, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever because of this, information. Yeah. So it's like all of that happened. That happened in such a short period of time, to the point that freaking Will Smith is doing movies about it. It all happens in this tiny little period of time.
That's it. Yeah.
And so when we're talking about 60 years, come on, man. Like, there's just so much we don't know. So sometimes, we're going to make mistakes. There's no getting around that, right? We're going to make mistakes. The league is going to make mistakes. Players are going to make mistakes. But, man, you've got to err on the side of caution when it comes to brain injuries. You do not err on the side of getting the guy out on the field.
That's it. That's exactly right. It was 10 years ago, May 2nd, 2012, that Junior Seau took his own life.
Wow.
And if you remember that situation, he shot himself in the chest so his brain would be preserved. And that's kind of the snowball. That was kind of like the snowball effect that caused it. But how much more do we know about it even 10 years ago? Like, you're so right. I mean, we know a little more. We know CTE. We know, there's the scarring that goes on and things like that. But, I mean, you're right. Just even 10 years ago, we didn't know that much. So, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, it's I'm going to be curious to see when they get him back on the field, if he gets back on the field, this year. I'm assuming he will, but Yeah, there's no chance he plays next week, right?
Look, I don't think we're in a position to say. I mean, look, and don't think that there's any sort of confusion over the fact that Tua has already released a statement today. As you mentioned, he flew back with the team, right? Yep. So no issues. Hey, man, I'm out of the hospital. I'm good to go. Like, I'm feeling great. No problems for me whatsoever. In fact, just to give the exact quote, he says here, I want to thank everyone for all of their prayers and support since the game last night. It was difficult to not be able to finish the game and be there with my teammates. So again, just keep in mind, we talked earlier about the competitive nature of players. In the guys, the second sentence of his message after a frightening injury was about how difficult it was to not be able to be out there on the field with his teammates, right? So if that tells you anything, it tells you like the guy's seen footage of himself seized up in the middle of the field. He didn't say, hey, man, I know it was super scary last night. I don't know what the hell happened, and I'm kind of freaked out, but I'm hopeful things are going to be okay. He's talking about how difficult it was for him to not be able to be out on the field.
Not to be able to finish the game.
But I am grateful. Yeah, but I'm grateful for the support and care I've received from the Dolphins, my friends and family, and all the people who have reached out. Who does he mention first that he's grateful to? The support and care I've received from the Dolphins, my employer, right? The people who pay me, man, am I grateful for the care I've gotten for them. I'm feeling much better and focused on recovering so I can get back out on the field with my teammates. This is what the guy wants to do. Who wouldn't want to do it?
Yeah.
You grew up your whole life. From the time you're in Pop Warner as a little kid, you're playing quarterback. You've gone through, you're finally having success after a couple frustrating, difficult years in the NFL. You're breaking through. You don't want to let that slip through your fingers. 2 different times. In his first communication after being released from the hospital, it's about how difficult it was to not be able to finish the game with my teammates and how I can't wait to get back on the field. So, again, this is what we're talking about. Yep. And the idea that this person and this entire multi-billion-dollar organization that he is the face of, the idea that they really actually have his best interest and his health at the forefront of their minds versus the interests of the organization, the business, the multi-billion-dollar industry business that he's the face of the Miami Dolphins. You really think that they're more concerned about this guy? He's not the first or last quarterback to play for the Miami Dolphins.
Yep. And
if it isn't him, just like they showed before, that they were willing to bench him, not for any concussions, not for any injuries, because they thought whatever 47-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick would give them a better chance of winning games, even though they had spent a first round or whatever he was draft pick on Tua, they showed their willingness to move on from him. And so now he has to hold on to his opportunity. And he's making it very clear. And then to come out and say, I'm so grateful for the care I've received from the Dolphins.
Yeah. Blink twice if you're in danger, Tua.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's scary. And this is a guy he's still trying to do the right thing. Still trying to do the right thing. He knows. I'm sure the team mentioned to him like, hey, buddy, we're taking some heat. But we want to make sure you're okay. Like maybe just drop some hints in there. Like even if they didn't ask him directly, I'm sure they were like, hey, just so you know, man, there's some people that are upset. Hope you know we did everything right for you. You might not remember everything that we did.
Trust me though, we did
that ankle injury. You seem super out of it, but we did it. We protected you. Your back was seriously hurting, buddy. We really stepped up. Scary, man.
Yep.
Scary stuff. So, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we can talk about this, for a lot longer. And honestly, we probably will be. There's still going to be more. This thing is going to continue to unfold. 2 things that I wanted to find out from you, though. What is your over-under on when Tua returns? You think he's out for a week, 3 weeks, 6 weeks? What do you think?
That's a good one. That's a good question. I mean, they're not going to, I mean, dude, if he plays this coming week.
Truthfully, I don't think there's anything at this point that could show up in a medical test that would allow him to play
surely
this. Because
not.
the team knows there's so much attention on them, it just couldn't do it.
So we talk about this, who plays who. So they played last night, so they won't play again until the 9th, which is against the Jets.
Yeah.
16th is going to be against the Dolphins. 23rd
against the Dolphins.
I'm sorry, against the Vikings. On the 16th,
okay.
The Vikings. The 23rd against the Steelers. The 30th against the Lions. Their bye week is not till. It's not for a while. It's like, it's November 20th is their bye week, it looks like. So
wow.
They still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games before their bye week. So it's Jets, Vikings, Steelers, Lions, Bears, Browns, and then the bye week. So if I had my guess, they'll set them for the Jets. Because again, we talk about the Jets,
winnable game.
They're 1-2, but I mean, it's a very, very winnable game. Steelers, very winnable game. It's in Miami. Lions.
Vikings could be a tough one. Vikings in between.
Oh yeah, we did.
That could be a tough game.
Yeah, he comes back for the Vikings game then, I bet. I think he's out 1 week.
I think it's Vikings.
He's out 1 week. If he's not, he comes back for the Steelers. 2 weeks tops. It'll be a week though. It'll be a week. I mean, if he's already,
it'll be a week.
It's funny.
What also happened on a Thursday night game, so there's a week and a half.
Exactly,
it was a Thursday night game, so a little extra time, and they'll attribute that. Like mark this down. In fact, we're going to make sure we will call back to this. My guess is when he does come back for the Vikings game, they reference the fact that he had extra time because of it being a Thursday night game. That it was essentially like having 2 weeks off rather than just 1 week.
Exactly. Well,
that's going to be my prediction.
Which is why he could theoretically probably play against the Jets, because he's going to have 10 days now of no football.
That's right.
Now, the reason why he probably won't play is because they won't allow him to practice, so he won't have any practice time. So, the Vikings, he's out a week. He's out for 1 game, and he'll be back for the Vikings. So it's going to be. And then you just hope and pray that
it's pretty amazing.
Because if he gets another one, that's got to be season ending, right? I mean, he gets 3 concussions in 4 weeks, whatever it will be.
And that's the whole thing, man, is that this is not a player that either one of us care that much about, or a team that either one of us care that much about. We have no investment in this, but you can see when you look at the situation, and we as just fans of the league, fans of the NFL, look at this and say, I hope that my team would not handle this situation the same way that Miami has. And the nice thing is, at least for me personally, again, we've talked about on the show, I'm a Ravens fan. For me personally, and the Ravens haven't done everything right all the time, but when I say I hope my team wouldn't handle this like the Dolphins, they've been in the situation and they did not handle it like the Dolphins did when the stakes were far, far higher. Yeah. Far, far higher. This is playoff football, and there was never a thought about bringing Lamar Jackson back in. Again, the Steelers have certainly had their share of injuries and things like that. Ben, of course, Roethlisberger, whether you ever believed it or not, had 7 injuries each week of the season, every season when he played.
No, it's true.
And so, he was. All of those were legitimate injuries.
That's true.
Yeah. Double dislocated elbows most games. but But here's the thing, right? Ben's willing. Ben was always like, "Oh man, I'm really beat up out here. I'm really," but none of those things were concussion related. No, they're not neurological issues. If there were, then I believe the Steelers would have probably done. I'm not saying that Ben never had any concussions, but I'm saying that I think when those opportunities came up, it got dealt with properly.
He did, and he actually set himself out a game, and you wouldn't believe like the grief that dude got. Because he was like, nah, I'm not playing. So he actually set himself a game because of the concussion. Like he was like, no, I'm not going to play. And he actually, told the coach, I can't play. And of course, Tomlin was like, get in there. He, all right, you're sitting, So there is a precedence, which is funny because, before we knew it, everyone was like, come on, man, you got to tough it out. You got to be tougher. And like, how you tough out a brain injury?
Rub some dirt on that head of yours. Rub some dirt on your head and get back out there. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this isn't like it used to be, right? It's not like, oh man, I twisted my ankle, I, cracked my knee. This is brain injury stuff. And again, like we were just talking about a little bit ago, the evolution of knowledge about brain injuries has happened at such a staggering rate that it would not surprise me at all that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a concussion could be a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think, a very, very realistic thing. That it would one concussion, you'd never even have the opportunity to come back into a game. It is absolutely, and you see these crazy padded helmets that they wear now in training camp.
In training camp, yes. Yeah, which the guys say like adds extra weight. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They
hate them.
There was a backup. I can't, and I should have marked it down. And I didn't, but I was watching a football game and a backup lineman came in. This dude had the weirdest looking, it almost looked like a bike helmet that he had on. It was a helmet I have never seen before, and it kind of came out more in a point. Now, it was still, of course, the face guard, but the top came out more in a point. And I meant to look it up, and I never did, but I'm just wondering if that was like some new helmet, I don't know. Like that was, I mean, they keep coming up with new things, more and more things. I mean, people saying, hey, go back to the leather helmets because, you're not. And I don't know that they're 100% wrong on that. Like,
no, me either. I think it's very interesting. It sounds funny when you first hear it, but then when you start thinking through, you're like, well, you're damn sure not going to be, taking shots at somebody's head with that.
Yeah, right. You're not leading with a helmet, with a leather helmet. Now, again, the football we grew up on, you go back to the leather helmets, like you're completely changing the game. And then at some point, maybe it does become unwatchable. Look, we live for the big hits. You have a Ravens defense. You grew up with the Ravens defense. I grew up with the Steelers defense, like known for just hard hits, just hard, and that's the football we knew. That's the football we grew up on. Like nobody wants
Joey
to
Porter,
see
your Ray Lewis, your all of these guys, your
James
Ed Reed,
Harrison, Troy Polamalu coming across the middle, blowing some dude up, just flying in. I don't think anyone wants us to turn into like an arena league, game. Right. Like we don't want. I mean, the NFL's trying to take it there, but most people don't want 67 to 64 scores. We want like a good just battle on both sides of the ball. And man, I don't know what you do, but like the more padding you seem to put in these helmets, the more that it seems that people think they can get away with more. And it's like the boxing gloves, and that was the whole thing with like MMA, why everyone was, says MMA is actually, it's actually safer because your brain can tell like when the padding is this thick compared to this thick that you're getting hit in the head, those multiple blows with those huge boxing gloves, they just add all that extra impact where if you got the smaller gloves, you get hit in the head, a few times, your body's like, yeah, we're done. So, and that's kind of like with the helmets, like, I don't know, adding more padding does much besides, make people use their helmets more or make them feel like they need to. Now the NFL is cracking down. Like some of the hits on the defensive receivers, like I still don't know what defensive players do when someone catches the ball and immediately ducks as you're coming in low, they're getting lower.
Yeah.
Like some of it is just like,
you can't avoid it.
How do you stop this? Like you just take the penalty and those are the penalties that feel like you're just making these penalties to make yourself look good. Like, a player can't control that. They're just cheap. Yeah. Like, this is what we're cracking down on it. Like, no, a player can't control that stuff. Like, like if you're at this level and I'm coming in at you like this to get you in the midsection and then you duck even lower, I'm not a contortionist. I can't. Right. Yeah. So now you're penalizing
legislate that stuff out of the game.
Right. But their way of fixing it or making the game safer is just adding on 15 yards, which literally does nothing.
Yeah.
Besides make the defense mad and, make the fans mad and say, what do you want them to do? So it's just, you're just the pig on the lipstick, type of thing. Like there's only so much you can do. And again, I don't know that I want them to do a ton. Like I don't it's just when a player has a concussion, take him out of the game. Like big hits are going to happen. I get it. Concussions are going to happen. Bad injuries are going to happen.
And they signed up for that. The players signed up for it.
Yeah.
Like I said before, the players sign up for that. So when those things happen, I don't think there's any issue. Like nobody's saying, or at least not you or I, nobody's saying, oh, we need to prevent hits that can cause a concussion. Right? That's a different thing. And that's where I think that people are getting this a little bit twisted, where it's nobody's saying hits shouldn't happen that cause concussions. What we're saying is when that concussion inevitably happens, you got to protect the player. Have to.
Pull him out.
You don't need to protect him from the beginning. You don't need to protect him from the hit within reason, right? You don't need to protect him from the hit. You need to protect him after the hit. You need to protect him after the injury. We spend so much time kind of proactively preventing injuries, but then on the retroactive, the reactive to the injuries, we're letting the guy go right back out there.
We'll let him go right back out.
And that's the thing that doesn't make sense.
And I guess, and maybe they're not. And the reason we are so befuddled is that they let this one go. Like maybe they are doing a decent enough job, teams are, of pulling their guys, not letting them back in the game. That the fact that it's
definitely different than it ever used to be.
Yeah, the fact that the Dolphins let him back in is what's causing all of this. Again, this isn't coming from us. This isn't coming just from us. This is coming nationwide. This is coming from former players. This is coming from players. This is coming from coaches. If it was just you and me, like literally just you and me complaining about this, then, all right. We're just two guys. Who cares?
Yeah.
But this is coming from all over. When players start speaking up and say, when you shake your head, you're trying to get the cobwebs out. That's nothing to do with your back. Right. When you got a current NFL coach on a current NFL team saying, I've never seen anything like this in my 40 years of coaching.
Yeah.
Pretty much calling out the team saying, what are you doing? Yes, people should take notice. And NFL Players Association do
and not
something.
For nothing. Yeah, because not for nothing, when you're going back to this Harbaugh thing really quickly, this is also one of the longest tenured, most successful coaches in the league, right? This is a little bit different than like a new guy trying to make a name for himself. And so it does carry a certain amount of weight anytime a long tenured, successful, iconic coach in the league is going to say something. This would be very similar to a Mike Tomlin or a Bill Belichick. I mean, there are a handful right now of those coaches because now the league has kind of like cycled out so many coaches, and now it's all about new coordinators getting opportunities and everything else. There's so few long
new white guy
successful coaches. That's right. That's right.
With slick back hair. Yeah, that's the new
that's who we need. Who's the next Sean McVay and all of these guys.
If you look like McVay, we want you. We don't care what your coaching acumen is, as long as you look like him.
Yeah. We want you to look like this dude. We want preferably have a flat brim hat if you're going to wear a hat. Like, we know what we want.
Don't bend it like I do.
Yeah,
I need it flat. No, leave it.
Yeah, it needs to be flat. Little stubble, like little stubble, not a full beard, just stubble that shows like, hey man, I'm hip, I'm part of it.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool, guys.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
Because again, we're trying to appeal. Yeah, because we're trying to appeal to younger viewers. We're trying to build up the next generation of fans. Like all of these things. I mean, you think the NFL doesn't care about their Twitter account, their TikTok, their YouTube, their the streaming? The NFL Plus has just launched all of these things, man. They got a million things happening all the time, and all of these things become important. These are the heads, the faces. The quarterback and the head coach are the two faces of your multi-billion-dollar business. And when you look through the league at quarterback and head coach, it's very interesting because the head coaches very often look different than the quarterbacks do nowadays. Didn't used to be the case, right? Nowadays it is. You're seeing a lot more black quarterbacks, not seeing very many more black head coaches. So there's a big disparity between what the quarterbacks and the head coaches look like when they're both the head of your and the face of your organization. But if you look across the league, man, you see this thing where now the coaches are really very close in age to the players. The idea being that they can relate to them. Yeah. We're no longer seeing the Tom Coughlin, situation anymore.
No.
It's what Belichick and these types are such an outlier now.
They really are. They really, truly are, and that, so we're probably going to grab on a different subject here, but we're here. So let's go. Why is Eric Bieniemy not a head coach? What is this guy doing in his interviews? I think I joked about it before. Like, is he going into these interviews just like passing gas, throughout the whole entire
what
interview?
Is he doing?
That he's not a head coach. And I don't know if you saw the whole thing with Shady McCoy when that whole issue came up last weekend.
Yep.
And pretty much making it sound like, is that really Eric Bieniemy? Is he really just a jerk and no one likes him? And Andy Reid just puts up with him because he's an offensive genius. Is he an offensive genius or is it all Andy Reid? Like, what is it? Like, you would think an offensive coordinator that's led the Chiefs, to scoring titles and everything else, Super Bowls. You would think he would be like, he should be a prime head coach. Like how is he not? What is it? I can't imagine, like, in this day and age, it's because he's a black offensive coordinator. Like, I can't imagine for the life of me that it would be his skin color. Although, Brian Flores would probably like to chime in.
He's got a lot to say. He's got a lot to say
about that. He sure does. But I mean, you got like Nathaniel Hackett. He doesn't know when to call a timeout. He doesn't know when to go for it. Yeah. He's a head coach. You got literally, you're right. You just all these white 30 something, to mid 40s head coaches. And then you got someone like Eric Bieniemy, who's his team's still putting up points despite Tyreek Hill and missing out on these players. No offensive line, is still able to get an offensive moving. You would think like the Chicago Bears would have been all over that, but
get something they hire Justin Fields and have a great offensive coordinator for him. But
no, they hire a defensive coordinator to be their head coach. Like, so I don't know. It perplexes me, and it has to be something that's going on in that interview that just is giving teams pause. That like, this is where I think we're going to wait and we're going to go in a different direction. I mean, Josh McDaniels gets a head coaching gig. He took a head coaching job. He took a head coaching job and then was like, man, never mind.
Yeah. Like they're having the press conference to introduce the guy basically. And he's just like, you know what? Gosh, I don't know. I thought about it and I'm not interested anymore. So long, Colts.
Yeah. Puts them in the terrible position. And, this is already past the hiring cycle at this point. And now they've got to start all over again. And the Raiders were like, come on in. So I don't know. There's got to be something.
There's a lot that doesn't make sense. No, the Bieniemy thing doesn't really make any sense. Other than, it's interesting. The only thing that I can take, because it's very easy. And again, I'm not going to rule this out. I'm not in a position to rule this out.
Sure.
But it's very easy to automatically attribute it to race. It may be. I can't say that. But separate from that, it would not surprise me if there's not a little bit of the Rex Ryan treatment going on. When Rex Ryan was defensive coordinator for the Ravens, every hiring cycle, he was talked about because the Ravens defense was great, and he was talked about as that he's going to be a head coaching candidate. And then he'd stay. And one of the big things was, and he's come out and talked about it very openly, that like teams would kind of want him to look a certain way, talk a certain way, because again, he's the face of the company at that point. And Rex Ryan was not a guy. And now he over time he's pulled himself together a little bit, but he was never like this like svelte, like Kyle Shanahan, McVay type of guy, right? He's big, heavy set, used to have a mullet, just like guy and straight shooter and cursing and, all of these types of things. Seemed like a great guy to get a beard with, but not necessarily someone that you want because you can't trust him. You can't trust him behind the mic. You don't know how he's going to represent your team definitively. And so it's like, it is more than just, are you a good head coach on an X's and O's? It's also, how will you represent our business? And I do wonder if maybe there's not a little bit of the Rex Ryan scenario that goes on with an Eric Bieniemy, who, doesn't necessarily look like, and I'm talking for reasons other than skin color, doesn't necessarily look like the typical face of an organization. Now, neither does Andy Reid. However, Andy Reid was doing this way before that became such an important thing.
Right.
And at a certain point, he has a certain amount of cachet and a backlog of success, a history that, it's impossible to look past that. And so therefore you kind of go, well, look, I don't know what the hell the guy's doing, but he's making it work, so we're going to continue. Right. Now, the one situation recently that flies in the face of that is Brian Daboll taking over as head coach of the New York Giants. But again, in that scenario, people attribute a lot of Josh Allen's success to Brian Daboll. So maybe you make up for some of your appearance issues, if you want to call it that, to be a little different.
It's possible. It's funny that no one ever contributes Bieniemy or Patrick Mahomes' success to Eric Bieniemy, but
you're right.
I don't know.
Very right.
I don't know. To say I'm shocked by a lot, like there's not a whole lot that I, at my age that shocks me anymore. But to think that a team wouldn't hire someone because of color,
Makes no sense.
mean, it just doesn't make it. It just wouldn't make any sense. I mean, I just, in this day and age, like it wouldn't make any sense. But I would love to know. And I'm not sure that he's ever come out and said like, this is why I'm not getting hired, or this is what they're saying. Like, I don't know that anyone's like sit down and ask him like, so what's going on in these interviews? Why haven't you gotten a head coaching job? And maybe to his credit, he's not wanting to, to ruin anything else. Again, though, Josh McDaniel took a head coaching job and then reneged on it and is a head coach. So I can't imagine that should really, hold a whole lot of weight that, that he'd be afraid to speak out and say, this is what's going on in these meetings, or this is what they're telling me, So I don't know. I don't know. I would love to know. Love to know.
I think the other thing that's interesting too is that, and it's one of the things. So look, we would need a different episode. We don't have time. We weren't doing the show back when this happened. I wish we were, because boy, we could have had some good stuff. Maybe at some point it will. I know it will at some point reemerge, and we will talk more about it. You mentioned Brian Flores. So one of the things, if you remember, in the Flores accusations, is that he made this, accusation against John Elway and the Denver Broncos about, it being a sham interview. They showed up hungover. They were late. They were way out of it. They didn't take the interview seriously, et cetera, et cetera. And Denver at the time said, no, that first of all, that's not true at all. Second of all, we record all of our interviews. So we got the tape, baby. Like we can play it. And they were the ones to volunteer that. Flores was not saying, I know for a fact they recorded the interview, you should play it. The team in their defense was saying, we record the interviews. We've got the proof that it did not happen.
Yeah.
So separate from what that means for Flores, it makes me wonder, are these Bieniemy interviews being recorded? Because, boy, I'd love to see what those things are like, right? Is this just a confrontational guy? Is he incredibly arrogant? Like, what is his deal? We don't see much from him. Like, we just don't know. And it might be a reason that Andy Reid doesn't put the guy in front of the cameras. Maybe there's a reason that he's
I
just
was saying
not
that
the
too.
guy,
When is the last time you heard Eric Bieniemy speak at the podium?
I don't know what his voice sounds like.
I seriously have no clue.
This is a guy who's won Super Bowls and everything else, and I don't even know what his voice sounds like. I have no idea.
I'm sure people in Kansas City who watched like the games after, like I'm sure, but I don't see it on national TV. You're right. No. I have no clue if he's got a deep voice, a high voice. I don't know. It's a great question. I have no clue what Eric Bieniemy sounds like. Yeah. I would love to.
And when when everyone talks about what Patrick Mahomes sounds like, everybody knows Patrick Mahomes, Sesame Street voice.
Yeah.
So why in the world, when he's so celebrated, here we are, he's winning Super Bowls, going to Super Bowls. Here's the offensive coordinator that's supposedly, presumably responsible for so much of his success. Nobody has any idea who the guy is. Nobody there's no voice, no thing that you can identify about him. Personality, we just don't know anything. And like you said, if you're a Chiefs fan or you live in Kansas City, you see him on the team app, or doing little interviews or maybe, in the training camp or something. But I don't know. He's not on a national scale. And
for sure.
Every offseason, it's a story on a national scale about why in the world isn't Eric Bieniemy getting a job. So it's a story on a national scale, but we don't see him on a national scale.
This has to be what?
And there's something going on.
5 years, 6 years he's been interviewing for head coaching jobs?
Got to be close.
Right?
Every year since Mahomes has come in. Every single year since Mahomes, for sure, minimally that.
Yeah, and that's 5. So, you're right. It's all these tapes that get leaked, there's got to be someone out there. Please, just someone leak it. I just want to see one interview so I can be like, that makes sense. That's why he's not getting it. Because otherwise, none of it makes sense to me at this point. So
no, it just doesn't.
Oh man!
I mean, I'm looking at Eric Bieniemy's information here. Interesting. He's only 5'7".
Yeah, very, very short.
That's something. But I mean, listen to this. If you didn't know who I was describing here, and you just had this resume, this is a guy who played college football at Colorado, was drafted, played in the league from 1991 to 1999 for the Chargers, Bengals, and Eagles. He then went back and became the running backs coach at his alma mater, Colorado, but only for a year. I say a year, 2001 to 2002. So whether that was 6 months, 2 years, hard to know based on the hiring date. Then leaves there. So again, he leaves his alma mater to go to UCLA, not a promotion because it's also as the running backs coach, also for 2 years there from 2003 to 2005. Then he goes to the NFL and becomes running backs coach for the Minnesota Vikings from 2006 to 2009. Then for the Vikings in 2010, he becomes assistant head coach and running backs coach. Then he goes back to Colorado 1 year, 2011, 2012, as an offensive coordinator. Then jumps back to the NFL with the Chiefs as running backs coach from 2013 to 2017, and then became offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2018. So He's won the Sporting News Coordinator of the Year award in 2020. He's also won a Super Bowl as a coach. He won a national championship and was a consensus All-American. National championship as a player, consensus All-American also as a player, and then Super Bowl champ and Coordinator of the Year as a coach. So if you knew nothing else about this person, even though you might say he's jumped around a lot of jobs, that's not uncommon for coordinators. Outside of that, successful collegiate player, successful professional player, goes into coaching, progressively builds himself up, moves into arguably the number one offense in the NFL, and becomes the number one offense, and tutors the top quarterback in the NFL and one of the best in history. And so, multiple other head coaches are hired.
Ready? I'm gonna pull a quote from A Time to Kill. So close your eyes.
Great movie. Great movie.
Now imagine he's white. We laugh, but come on, man. His interviews have to be just pure shambles. But you would think after 5 years of interviewing for head coaching jobs, he would know what to say and how to act. So, if he doesn't at this point, then I guess he's just never going to get a job as a head coach. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. I don't know. I'm sure the Chiefs are happy. I mean, every time he gets turned down, maybe Andy Reid's
it's working out for them.
Yeah, maybe Andy Reid's not sending a good recommendation letter. He's
right.
Late.
He's doing what Belichick did to McDaniels forever.
Yeah.
Just keep telling him, like, hey, man, I'm not going to be here forever, buddy. You're going to be taking over. This old ticker isn't going to hold up. I mean, you see what my kids are doing to me? Like, I'm going to have to leave here at some point. Yeah. And you're going to be able to take over the kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That Andy Reid saying that. And he's like, I ride in a car with my son every now and again.
That's right. Just pushing my luck every day. Yeah. This is Andy Reid's uninsurable. Yeah. Uninsurable by the team. Like, no, sir. That's 24-hour Uber.
Yeah. It's exactly right. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. But he's still going on these interviews, so maybe he just doesn't like the scenarios, or you're just taking them to keep your name out there, but you really are hoping.
It's going to be hard to find yourself a situation that's as good as what he has in Kansas City. So, if you're waiting for that, the teams that have that situation, they don't need head coaches, because if you have a great team, a great fan base, a rock star quarterback, everything set up for you, the great offense, all these types of things, they don't need new head coaches. Don't need new head coaches. Those that's what everybody's looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's bad teams that need new head coaches.
Right. Yep. I mean, you're 100% correct. And it's like, if he can hold out, I mean, honestly, how many more years could Andy Reid possibly have as an NFL head coach? It's got to be tiresome for him walking up and down those sidelines all the time.
He never looks happy doing it. I know that. He always looks pissed off.
And at least he doesn't have to wear that huge spit guard mask that he kept getting fogged up. Yeah. Trying to pull the mask up to see his place.
Like he himself was like a salad buffet. Which, trust me, he didn't know that, because he's never seen a salad before. He's never been to a salad buffet. He has no idea. Someone brought that up to him, and he was like, I don't get it. I don't know what that means.
But
never heard of it. Never heard of it.
Salad?
Is it at all similar to a sausage buffet? That I've seen. That I know.
I have one of those installed in my house.
I know about a bratwurst buffet. Yeah, the bratwurst buffet I'm very, very familiar with. But salad, gosh. I can't even imagine.
Oh, so funny. Who's the first head coach? Who's the first head coach fired this year? There's got to be.
This is interesting.
I mean,
look,
It's tough. I mean, Pete Carroll just signed a new deal.
I got a couple
right?
names flashing through my head. Yeah, it's not going to be Pete Carroll. Look, I think he's going to get another year. I don't know that he'll make it past another year, but Robert Saleh of the Jets is got to be a candidate. But again, they're going to make some excuses because they still got to figure out about Zach Wilson because of the injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've had a great draft. Joe Douglas, again, former Ravens front office guy, has gone there. So as the GM for the Jets, and really has made a massive impact. I mean, when you look at the player quality on the Jets now versus what it ever was in the past, there's no doubt about that. Whether Robert Saleh's the guy, I can't speak to. I don't know. I think the jury's very much still out. I think Todd Bowles, man, he feels like an interim head coach. He doesn't even feel like he's legitimately a head coach, particularly when Bruce Arians is still literally walking around on the sidelines during the game.
Yeah.
This is the guy that was the head coach. He's still there. He's still on the sideline. It doesn't make any sense. It undermines, even if he doesn't, even if Arians does not intend this, it undermines Todd Bowles as the new head coach and reinforces the idea this was all a Brady thing. This was all Brady forcing Arians out.
Yeah. So Brady retires this year. After this year, do you think Arians puts himself back in? I can't imagine Arians didn't want to continue to be a head coach. I mean, this is all he's ever wanted. Yeah. Starting at his time in Pittsburgh, this is always I wanted, and he'll tell you himself that he's the best that there is.